everyone. Welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie, Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie, Jessica.
So welcome to our My Moody Valentine series, Stalker edition. This month for February, for Valentine's Day, we're going to do a series of Moody Valentine recommendations. We're talking about stalkers and obsessive heroes. It's kind of hard to find all stalker books. We have 5 each, so 10 recommendations, and they're mostly stalkers. I think I have 1 or 2 that are just really obsessive heroes. What about you?
I found 5 stalkers, but as in being a stalker, they're definitely obsessive.
Yes, definitely. So I thought I'd read a lot more stalker books, but apparently my books are females being stalked by other people and then having like a possessive hero. So this is where the main male character is the stalker. And I could probably think of more. I just couldn't off the top of my head. So, okay. So tell me what you have for your first one.
Okay. My first one is The Stalker's Obsession.
So let me guess. This is about a stalker?
Yes. This is by Emma Bray. It's a novella, so it's a quick, easy, very smutty little read. This is Liam and Kylie. Kylie she's not had the best of luck. She's on her own. She's barely scraping by, and she comes running out of her apartment. She's late because her creepy neighbor keeps hitting on her and will not leave her alone. And so it makes her late for work almost every day. So she's running out of the apartment building and runs smack into, I always find this funny because like whenever a woman in a romance book runs smack into a guy, it's always described as, I ran right into a brick wall.
Yes.
And so she runs into the brick wall that happens to be Liam, and Liam becomes obsessed with her at this point. He calls her his little butterfly, and from that point forward, he begins stalking her. He follows her to the library. He follows her around town and like learns everything there is about him. And then he saves her from that creepy neighbor and takes her back to his mansion because he is a billionaire.
I'm so surprised.
And she is a virgin.
I'm doubly shocked.
So as for this trope and it being a novella, it's like, of course, going to be smutty. It was actually a really fun read. I really enjoyed it. It has a lot of those little cliches in it, but the writing is wonderful. And it's just excellent for what it is.
So it has like all the things in it, right? Like she tries to fit as much in there as she can in a novella.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was good though.
Yeah.
I've never read anything by the author before, so I'm definitely going to check out some more work by her.
Definitely. And a short novella is always a great way to dip your toes in.
Yes. I actually have another one that's a stalker novella, and I kind of wonder if like stalker books are a little bit harder to write.
I think they were harder for me to find. To make sure that's like ones that I had actually read. So my first book is The Cat and Mouse Duet by H.D. Carlton. We start with Haunting Adeline. There's 2 books. Obviously, it's a duet. There's 2. The second book doesn't really have a lot of stalker. The first one definitely has the stalker. So in this book, we meet Adeline, who is an author, and she's living in the Seattle area. And her grandma has just passed away, and she's been given Parsons Manor, which is the big manor house that her family has lived in for quite a while. And so she moves into the manor house, and she finds her great grandmother's old journals. And this one, like the great grandma had been murdered, but great grandma had a stalker. And they always thought that the stalker, they're not really, nobody knows who killed grandma, but Adeline starts suspecting that it was the stalker because she starts reading these love letters to the stalker, or these journal entries, which are all about the stalker. In the meantime, she goes to a book signing in Seattle at a little bookstore, and she notices this guy with multicolored, like 2 different colored eyes, and he's got a scar, but he's still hot. But there's just something about him that's a little off. And he's there one second, and then gone the next. And then next thing she knows, there is a guy standing outside her mansion with his black hoodie and all black clothes, and you can't see his face, and all you can see is the cherry end of the cigarette where he's smoking a cigarette. And she starts finding like roses in her house, like on the kitchen counter next to an empty glass that he would have drank bourbon out of. And so she gets herself a stalker. So this one has like some really creepy elements to it, because there is a time where she sees a ghost in the house. She feels like her great grandmother is leading her to find her killer. So you have that investigative part of it, but at the same time, she's legitimately being stalked by someone. And it is so good and so creepy. So I can't read this at night alone in the dark. I need somebody to hold my hand. I spook easily though, so that's probably why. But this was a great book, and this is like the ultimate stalker book.
All right. Okay, my next stalker book is called The Danger You Know by Lily White. Have you read this?
No.
Okay.
No. It's on my TBR. I haven't read it. I was looking at it earlier today going, I need to read that one.
It's good.
Okay.
It's definitely very different. So Ari is a hitman, and Ari killed Adeline's dad. And when she was only 16. And when he is sneaking out of the house, he catches a glimpse of her. He was told the house would be empty, but he catches a glimpse of her and is immediately drawn to her. Like, he is insta attracted to her, and he doesn't quite understand why, because he's a hitman. He's very used to detached feelings, but all of a sudden he kind of starts to feel a little guilty about what's going on here, but we don't know why. Like, that's all we know, is that he's just kind of feeling a little guilty. So he makes it his personal mission to stalk her or follow her. And he continues to do this as she, becomes an adult, and she gets herself into some situations where she goes out to a club and things like that. And he rescues her, but she doesn't remember him specifically, but she has these kind of like vivid dreams almost of him, and she doesn't really understand what's going on, but her vivid dreams of him are actually like him doing different things for her. He breaks into her house and takes some of her stuff. And he is so obsessed with protecting her and keeping an eye on her that he has cameras installed in her house, or he actually installs the cameras in her house. He has somebody watch her when he's out of town on other jobs. Like, it's hardcore stalking at its finest. And so eventually they end up kind of in a situation where they start somewhat of a relationship. And things to keep in mind as you're reading this book: he killed her father, and he's been obsessively watching her. So this was a fantastic stalker read. It was a 5-star, highly recommend it.
Yep, definitely. I'll be reading that one soon. Okay, so my next book is, I know this is going to shock you, but it's by Kay Webster.
Oh, Kay Webster has a stalking book?
Yeah, it's called Notice. So it's Notice by Kay Webster. And I think as far as stalkers go, it almost felt on the lighter side of the stalkers for me. Violet has worked for Grayson for 6 years as like his personal assistant. He's the CEO. She's basically run the company. He has ignored her for years, for 6 years. He doesn't even, I don't think he gets her name right. Like, he doesn't even realize who she is. And she's been working for him for these years, building up to a different job that she wants to have, or to start her own business. And she finally has enough, and is like, I'm done. And so she slaps her 2-week notice on his desk. And at this point, he finally looks up, and he looks at her, and he sees her, and he's like, oh, I like her. And that's like when the stalking happens. So what we find out is Grayson has an addictive personality. And so when he sees something, he immediately is addicted to it, and he like just gloms onto it, and he doesn't stop until he gets it. And so he hasn't seen her, hasn't like literally seen her. He hasn't paid attention to her for 6 years, but the minute she says she's done, the game is just beginning. And so that's when it starts. So that's all I can say, because otherwise it gives too much away, but it was good. It was really good.
I love Kay Webster, so I can't imagine that it wouldn't be good.
Yeah. And I think it's on the shorter end. I mean, it's not a novella, but it's just a lot of her books aren't very long. So it's right around that 200 mark. So it was a quick read, but it was good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, on to the next Stalker.
Okay, my next Stalker book is called Where Violets Bloom by Daisy Jane. This was a solid 5-star book for me. You're shaking your head. Have you read this?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you hear good things?
Yeah.
Okay. I absolutely love this book. So this follows Violet and Van. And Van is a police officer, and he has weird, like naughty extracurricular habits, not as in like sexual, but other things that he does that he really shouldn't be doing as a police officer. So in this case, it is not surprising that he decides that when he sees Violet, he is going to stalk her. And he stalks like Stalker, does he? I mean, he is like he does. And let's just keep in mind, he's also a police officer. So I did read some reviews where people like were really disappointed in the book that he was a police officer, but I think we just have to roll with the fact that it's fiction. Yeah. And I think it just kind of adds like a whole nother element to it. Like he's supposed to be this upstanding citizen, but yet
he's supposed to be safe.
and he's not. And he does other things that you would not want your neighborhood police officer doing.
Uh-oh.
So Violet is a teacher. She still lives at home, and she has a sister who her parents adore and dote on, and the sister gets everything. And Violet is basically treated like worse than dirt on the carpet. It's pretty bad, and so she's not taken care of well. It's an abusive situation that she's living in, but unfortunately, she cannot save up enough money to move out, and every time she does, something happens, and she ends up losing her money. And so it's just not a good situation. So what does Van do? He decides the only way he can keep her safe is if he kidnaps her.
Yeah, that's true. Kidnap her.
So Van kidnaps Violet, gets her back to his house, and realizes now he has to convince her that he is not crazy, that he really likes her, and that she will be safe with him. And so this is their story. After he kidnaps her. It's so good. I know I'm kind of laughing about it, but it sounds silly when you talk about it out loud, but the book is so good. And you just have to think about, like, he's a police officer. He kidnaps her. And so just thinking about all that, I was so intrigued. Like, I have to read this book. I have to know how the author is going to craft this story. And oh, she did not disappoint at all.
That's awesome. I don't know. I think I would like it just for the police officer aspect of it. Mm-hmm. Just coming from my background. Like,
yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, my next book is by Celia Aaron. It's called The Bad Guy. So she has 2 books that are technically stalkers. I read one for this and I was like, nope. But this one I read a little while ago and it was good. So this one is about Sebastian and Camille. So Camille is a biology teacher. She's really into, like, I don't know, the rainforest, like the Amazon rainforest, and certain plants and stuff in the Amazon rainforest and the animals. It's her thing. And she meets Sebastian, and I cannot remember how they meet. I just know that they meet early on in the book, and then they kind of go their separate ways for a little while. And then all of a sudden so Sebastian is a CEO of a forestry company. But she gets this letter from this organization that goes into the Amazon and works with the flora and the fauna. And this is like life goals for her. Like, this is it. This is it. She's made it. She gets to go for, I think it was 6 months. But it's an expedition trip that she gets to go to the Amazon and work with these people. She gets the letters from like this top professor. It's legit. It just looks great. And so because she earned this spot, they come and they pick her up in a limousine or in a fancy car, and she doesn't quite make it to the Amazon. She wakes up in a strange place. Yep. I can't remember if she's chained up or tied up, but yeah, she never makes it to the Amazon. So Sebastian has finagled this and like watched her for a very long time. And he's, like stalked her, like her phones and all that stuff to find out about her, like all this stuff about her. And then he just takes her. And he has where like she has to call, or he takes her phone and he texts her friends to pretend that she's in the Amazon so that they won't come looking for her while he has her as his captive in his mansion. So
wow.
Wow. Yeah. So but it was good. I saw somebody was like, she didn't try to run, she didn't try to whatever, and I'm like, dude, it's fiction. Just read. So I didn't feel that way when I read it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, some hot billionaire CEO abducts me.
You're all for that?
I'm fighting my way out. Come on. So, okay, what else you got?
Okay, my next read is called Chaining Daisy by Anne Denton. It was a 4-star read for me, so it was a good stalker book. It's a little sort of on the far stretch side of like how the whole plot works out. That's why it was a 4-star, not a 5-star. It is just over 200 pages, so I don't know if we'd really call it a novella, but it's either a really long novella or a short book.
Mm-hmm.
I've read where some people are like anything under 150 pages is a novella, and then I've seen people like say under 200. People are all over.
I've only ever heard under 200.
Under 200?
Yeah, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so then this is like a very short book then.
Yes.
This is about Dr. Gunner and Daisy. Dr. Gunner meets Daisy in the hospital where he's a doctor, and he is instantly attracted to her, like majorly so. And he decides she's not ready for the kind of love that he has. So what is he to do? Well, he is going to marry her mom so he can stay in her life.
Okay. All right.
So Daisy's mom has cancer and is dying. And so he marries her, and then he can get her health insurance, gets her some better treatment, and kind of just helps improve her end of life quality. He takes Daisy like under his wing, and he's like the stepdad, and everything is like normal. And then once there's been, I guess, an appropriate amount of time for her to grieve her mom passing, he decides it is time to claim Daisy. So that is where I just had a little bit of a hard time with the plot. I mean, he becomes obsessed with her. He like stalks her around the hospital, and then when he finds out who her mom is, he's like, well, I'm gonna marry the mom so I can keep her. I don't know how much more stalkerish you can get than to like actually marry into the family.
I mean, that's like watching her on a whole different level.
I know.
Yeah.
But it felt a little weird for me, because if he was so in love with her, I mean, why would he marry the mom still? Like, that is just the part where I kind of struggle a little bit with that.
He was crazy?
Obviously.
Uh-huh. A little bit. They tend to be.
Okay.
They're darn billionaire CEOs and the things they get up to.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So my next recommendation is Reaper by A. Zavarelli. So this is the second book. So I'm holding here, like, this is a bind up of the first 2 books in her Boston Underworld series. This is the Mystic Box edition, but it's the second book in the Boston Underworld series. So I wouldn't say you have to read the first book. I think you should read the first book, because you get that whole backstory. You get to meet some of the characters in the first book that are in this book. So for enjoyment purposes, definitely read the first book. But this one is about Sasha and Ronan. So we meet Sasha in the first book, which this is the Irish Mafia. It also revolves around the Club Sláinte, which is ran by the Irish Mafia, and by club I mean strip joint. Strip joint. And
I was taking a drink of my coffee and I almost sprayed it everywhere.
Oopsie! Sorry. Okay, so we met Sasha in the first book. She is our main female character in this book. She's a dancer at the club, but she's mousy. She's very quiet. She keeps to herself. Her mom is dying, and she's taking care of her mom. She's had some problems in the past, like some trouble, and that's how she got into where she was at. And that's also how she met Ronan. So Ronan is like the killer for the club. Like, he does the dirty work. He's the bad man. He's the enforcer. And he has had a very hard upbringing. He really doesn't like to feel emotion. He has a hard time with intimacy. And he has a hard time communicating. But he and Sasha have this encounter. And then she's working at the club, and he basically watches her for 2 years in the dark from the sidelines. Like, he doesn't interact with her at all.
That is dedicating stalking. 2 years.
He is infatuated with her. And I mean, it's like a borderline stalking. It's more like an obsession, because she knows he's there. She interacts with him a little bit, but like, he's just there. You know what I mean? Like, he just watches her for 2 years. She can be sassy, but she's more reserved. She's raised a good Catholic girl, but yet she's stripping. We all have our things, you know. I don't think stripping was her first choice in life, but yeah. And so this is their story. There's things that happen. There's a bad guy. There's a bad guy that she interacted with, and then he pops back up, and it's a whole thing. But if you like one of those heroes, which I'm a sucker for a hero that's like been tormented and can't communicate very well and has, like, you know, a hard time with emotions, this is your book. This is your book right here. So I just remember there was one scene in the strip club when it was empty between the two of them that, it's still hot. It's been a couple of years since I read it. So, you know, do you like those silent brooding types? Here you go.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my last book is called My Husband, My Stalker by Jessica Kane. Have you read it?
No, but I flagged it to read it, and I know that you read it.
It's a novella. It's a great, fun read if you're in the mood for a quick stalker romance. So this has Jolie, who has been kidnapped, and she was kidnapped for a few days, and she is doing a news interview outside the courthouse. And Christopher, who is a hitman, sees this interview and is like crazy insta attracted to her just by seeing her on this TV program. So what does a hitman do? He decides that he needs to find her. He like finds out everything about her. He finds out where she lives, and he inserts himself into her life and begins stalking her. By doing this, though, he is finding out things about her and using that information to help him help her kind of gain control back over her life. So it's a little hard to be upset with stockish ways, if you will, because he's using all the information he's gathering for good. So basically, the story is that they fall for each other pretty quickly, and that's where the my husband comes in play here. And she starts to feel better about things, and so she is going to discover that he does not sell insurance like he says he does. So that's how the story, you need to read it so you can find out what's going to happen.
That's funny. You can't trust them insurance salesmen. Jeez. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so then for my last book, I have Twist Me by Anna Zaires. Now, this is a trilogy, but this one... and
you found a trilogy stalker book?
Well, it starts out as a stalker book.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you.
Okay.
It becomes more of a possessive, obsessive hero in Captor Captive than it is stalker, but the beginning starts out stalkery. Now, it's been like 3 years since I read these books, so I had to really jog my memory. I did, I liked them. I remember that much, but I don't know if there's anything that anybody would get upset about. Check your triggers for all these books. They're stalkers. There's things that are going to happen. So definitely check your triggers. But this one is about Nora. So Nora is 17 when we meet her, and she is going out to a club with her bestie. She is obviously a virgin because, you know, it works. And when she's out at this club having a good time, she sees this gorgeous dark man, because they're all tall, dark, and handsome, across the club. And he kind of watches her for a little while, and then he comes over and he asks her her name, and he asks her how old she is, and she tells him, like an idiot, she tells him. And when she tries to get information out of him, he skirts it. He doesn't give her information. And so they have that meetup. And then a little while later, it's her graduation night, and she goes out on a date. And I can't remember the time, but there was a time lapse there. So she's going out on a date, and some point in the middle of the date, she gets knocked out. And then she wakes up on a private island where she can't get off, naked, in a bed that's not her own. And he's standing in the doorway. And he's like, yep, you're mine. And
okay, so you win the Stalker book.
It's the ultimate one. I mean, and the thing is, there's some bad things that happen right away, and it's more non-con than I mean, I think it's more dub-con than non-con, because I think she kind of starts to get into it, if I remember right off the bat. But there's definitely some very interesting elements in this book. Definitely some Stockholm syndrome in this book. But he's got her on a private island, so like she can't go anywhere. Granted, she's not tied up. She's just in a gorgeous house on a private island being fed by professional chefs. So I wouldn't be running either. Okay, okay. So yeah, it says that there's a little blurb for the book, and it says he saw her, he wanted her, he took her, and that's basically the gist of the book. But it's 3 books long. Other things happen. But that's all I'm going to tell you. It was good. I enjoyed the series. I devoured it all within a day when I did read it. I remember that. It was just boom, boom, boom into the next book. So that is my last Stalker book.
Okay, and you definitely won the Moody Valentine.
Well, I didn't know it was a competition.
I didn't either, but as soon as you said that she wakes up on a private island, I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't just take her to his house. He took her to his private island.
Yeah, that
I did, and I saw someone said on Goodreads, they were like, she didn't even try to find him. I'm like, let's be honest. Would you? Come on. No. Yeah.
Well, did she get to bring her Kindle?
I'm sure he had a library. Kindle Schmindle, if you got a library.
Okay, yes. If there are good books to read and you're on a private island and somebody else is cooking for you, I really don't see the complaint at this point.
I'm sure the man is a bazillionaire, like multiple times over. If she wants a book, she could get a book. So thanks everybody for watching. This wraps up the whole My Moody Valentine Stalker edition. Don't forget, we did put out a My Moody Valentine Taboo as well that should already be released.
I can link the video.
Yeah, Mandy can link the video for us. And we have a few other Valentine's videos, or at least one other one that'll be out after Valentine's for the month of February.
For the month of love.
Oh my gosh.
All right, make sure you check back Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us.
And until then,
go read.